you feel like you need to speak up. Because being at the war, just like you indicated, how many people can you attend to in a day? But if you're able to influence policies at the top, that will have some kind of a impact on the lives of people and the whole healthcare in general. And sitting there, you realize that the whole government setup has become some kind of a cesspool of corporate interest, individual greed, and a whole lot of stuff. Then there's actually a problem, and there is the need for us to tackle from the top so that the impact will trickle down to those at the community or the society level. And I think that is what gives me the courage, because we cannot just shut up and say, hey, we are scared. I know that nobody's going to speak. So it is quite imperative for us as young people, hoping that we inherit the future. My contention has always been that if we intend to wait for that future will never come, because today there are people who are busily mortgaging that same future for personal gains at this time. So that tomorrow that we are waiting to inherit as leaders will never arrive unless we take the fight upon ourselves and lead the conversation. And it's the reason why I've always been advocating that if you're a young person, don't sit idle, don't sit and say, hey, I'm not part of it. The conversation is all about us, because we are shaping the future. That future belongs to us. We cannot sit idle and watch people who will be living tomorrow to make such a bold decision for us. We need to be part of that conversation and ensure that the future we build will be a future of our own design and a future of our own creation, so it will fit the specs that we want. And for me, that has always been my motivation.
Very interesting that somebody actually wrote about you from the US to me, and with your permission I'll read it later on in the program, because he had only kind words to say about you. Right. But also some negative people also said, why are you bringing him on? Your game is master of the game. What is he a master of? And I said, well, he's a master in nursing. He has a master's degree in public health management. But more importantly, he's a master of oratory for fighting for his nation. In that field of endeavor, I don't think there is anybody near you. Malik Basintali does very, very well. In the days of old, Nana Kumia did quite well. In the days of old, other people did so well. There was the Kwesi Prads, there were the Kweku Bakons. But you know that sometimes they say, Eda aponchiri ni bewuno, and na yehune tinting, because some started well, but ended up no good. Sometimes your heroes become your zeros. You have started something, and you have started it so well. You are igniting a fire in the hearts of young people, not just in Africa, but also around the world and at the diaspora. Do you get any pushback from people who know you, who say things like, "Oh, the American emperor we see kebinina keka politics na omo kan omo ntie"?
Oh, definitely. I remember when I left the hospital, there was this whole lot of talk about going back to the hospital to do. But one thing I believe in, that if you believe in yourself and you know where you're going, you definitely get there. Because my conviction has always been that we need to stand up to people who have made up some kind of vocation that they will wreck society. Because it doesn't matter whichever endeavor you find yourself. If the state is wrecked, you have no future. And for me, that is the starting point. So I felt like my life cannot be dictated to me by people watching me from afar. You might not know me much. I stick to my conviction as long as I believe that what I'm doing is impacting positively on other people.
But in order to stick to your conviction, first and foremost, you must be informed. How do you inform yourself?
I think I read a lot. That is it. I read a lot. In a day, I can say I use about 60% of the day to read. Even if I'm at work, I make sure I read something. So reading has always...
leaders read and yes. Readers lead.
Yes.
I like that.
I virtually read anything I come across. It doesn't matter whether it's relevant or not. And I don't normally watch TV. I prefer to read the news itself. Read it myself, because that one, it sticks. You are able to memorize it anytime. And I think that has always been one of the driving force. And you are able to have enough insight and perspective. You understand issue. One thing that I have realized that most of our people they accept everything that they hear. For instance, you listen to the news, people say anything, they don't digest it. But for me, I think you need to build your personal perspective. You need to dissect every single issue you come across, and then when you're able to put them in that perspective, you'll be informed. You drive details to be able to understand what actually and make informed decisions out of that.
I think there is a malaise of naivety.
Yeah.
People are so naive that they think once something has been said by somebody, it has to be true. But I think it's mere common sense that whatever you hear, you must verify. Trust, but verify. And those who do not want to be verified must never be trusted.
Yes, I think it's because we have this timid culture of not asking questions, probing. For instance, even back at school, there are certain questions you cannot ask. But the whole enterprise of education is probing questions, seeking knowledge, and being able to make proper inquisition into issues just to understand the issues. But our culture is such that you don't ask questions. You don't drive details, so people grow in that culture, and at the end of the day, that becomes part of our life. We listen, whatever that we hear, we go to town with it. We don't drive details into. We don't ask critical questions. And for me, it's the reason why there are a lot of stuff going on which are not right. But people feel like, hey, if I speak, I may be on the nerves of the person, or I may be in the bad books of this other person, blah blah blah. So people will definitely decide to keep quiet over some of these things. But the thing is, if we all shut up and go to sleep, the estate will collapse. And that is what we've been witnessing in recent times. Everybody has gone to sleep, and there are people who start, just like you indicated, they started good. The motivation has always been money. So when I get in there, I get the money, come on, I can just shut up and then let it run. But for me, I think life is more than money.
What about this culture that we have? Respect the elders, respect the elders. When we have grown to know that all the elders, some are brilliant, some are nice, some are foolish, some are wise. Not all our elders are wise.
Yeah, I think that is a clear distinction that we need to make. I had a conversation with a man and I asked him, during your school days, I'm sure you had classmates who were idiots. He said yes. And I said, by now, they are not dead, they are still alive. So if you
and they may be in a position of authority.
Exactly. So you see, sometimes, so it's not about the age, but here, once the person has gray hair, the conclusion is that the person is sensible, but that might not be the case. So that is why I want to listen to an individual, listen to the conversation, and then we interrogate it further to ascertain whether there is some kind of reasoning or whatever that the person is saying. You can't just swallow the hook, line, and sinker because it's coming from somebody who is an elderly. You understand? Not everybody is smart. And in recent time, if you have been following the political discourse in this country, then you have enough evidence to justify the fact that indeed not every elderly person is indeed.
And then also there is this problem about correcting people when they are wrong.
Yeah.
Some people are more concerned with the tone than the fact of the correction.
Yes.
If you're wrong, you're wrong. My father had a nice way of putting it. Opinion Kwasi Darkwah Adriana Bao for Dancy Dumpoa. He says Sebiota Frache. Se Okwasia Ubejina bedroom baby ya boja ama ohene ete. Now you with Tedia, now Jun so bedroom hwa. Yan twem yam pon dwabo no ansa na ya betwen akogwa. Enti so ya ho Kwasia bedroom a ye gwa wo bedroom. So why is it that just because people are in positions of authority, because they are favored by the appointing authority, they feel they are beyond reproach?
Yes. I think that sense of entitlement has come about because of the nature of politics that we do in recent times. You see, the entire political landscape is monetized. So it's no longer about merit. It's not about the kind of intellect that you have. It's about being able to come in with some kind of cash. So in recent time, you see a lot of people coming into the political arena with a lot of cash because we have monetized the entire political space. So it has made it possible for quote unquote some of these idiots with cash to take over the center stage.
And cash has no smell. Whether you got it licking somebody's derriere or you picked it from the gutter, cash is cash.
Yes, and that is the thing. So such people who have come into the fray think that, oh, come on, I'm here because I'm entitled. I'm not accountable to anybody. So they begin to do things. That is where you see the excesses and the impunity that very often characterize the kind of things that we see. So for me, I think it's the nature of politics that we've set up in this country. If it is based on merit, based on credit, people are being appointed to position based on the kind of expertise, the knowledge, and the kind of this thing that they have. That kind of modesty and this thing, being able to account to the people, will become some kind of way. But unfortunately, people coming from the other side think that it's business as usual. I'm here because I'm a friend to the president. I'm here because I sponsor the political party. So why would anybody sitting in his village hold me accountable? So that is the kind of mentality we've designed about politics, and it's the reason why we're here today. But it's good that young people today are becoming very enlightened with the advent of this social media.
I like that word, enlightened.
Yes, with the advent of this social media and the new platforms that I imagine, people are becoming increasingly enlightened, getting exposed to the critical component. And today, with the button of the phone, you can just easily click and see what is happening in the United States of America, easily to do comparative analysis, begin to ask critical questions, interrogate what is this thing done here and why is it not being done here, why are people living this kind of way, why are we not doing the same here. So this kind of interrogation is really putting people on the line, and is the reason why you see this kind of criticisms and contributions coming from the young people, because they are beginning to understand. Let's say if I'm to take you back to about 20 years ago, politics was seen as a reserved area for few enlightened individuals in fancy coat. You cannot challenge them. But now I think it's changed. The narrative is changing. Young people are increasingly getting interested.
So they're fraud boys.
Yeah.
Fraud boys to me.
Yes, people are getting interested.
Uchabet na nyeska kakra. Now to me chichi delegates kakra.
In recent time, the Galamsey this thing, you see a lot of people, Galamsey campaigns going to parliament, and as we speak, there are a lot of them sitting there. So such people, what will be the kind of motivation on their side to initiate policies and programs that
Let
will help
me
us
bring
fight
you
violence?
closer to home and to the capital, Accra,
Okay.
where most of our politics that people see visibly is done. The truth is, politics is done in every village in Ghana, every nook and cranny. The rise of dirty partisan politics. What do you think led to it?
I think it's an old playbook, divide and rule. That has always been the tactics. And you see, in our part of the world, poverty has been made a deliberate political tool. If you want to
impoverish them.
Yes. If you want to enslave a population, take away their economic freedom or economic power, and forever they'll become indebted to you. And that is the playbook that is in play in Africa. So you divide the people, and whenever people are divided, their division creates strength. So it is that strength that many of these politicians leverage to do whatever they do. Because at the end of the day, if there are critical issues of concern that require the attention of every Ghanaian, you see the nation is divided, and within our division there is a strength that is created, so people can hide within this window that is created. So it is no longer about the issue being interrogated, it is about the individuals involved. And
so the few elected and appointed consciously impoverish the people.
Exactly.
Consciously
is a deliberate.
This brings to mind the analogy of Joseph Stalin.
Okay, yeah.
He picks chicken up,
Yes.
shows it to the people,
Yes.
plucks all its feathers forcefully
Yes.
till the chicken is bleeding, puts the chicken back on the ground, and looks at the people. He says, "This is how you treat the people." And then now he throws pieces of grain, corn on the ground. And that same chicken
Which is it?
that he has nearly killed
Yeah.
now follows him
Yes.
as it pecks
Yes.
at the corn on the ground.
Yes.
So this is what is happening
Yeah,
to
that is
the
the
poor
playbook.
people in Ghana.
That is the playbook. You'll be following people calling honorable. If you've ever had a chance of going to any of the constituencies, when the MPs, when they visit their constituents on weekends, go and see the lineup there. Everybody going to the honorable for something.
Bleeding chickens looking for corn.
Exactly. So always, because you don't have the economic freedom, the incentive are not being created, the opportunities are not there. So the only way to survive is to engage yourself in that master-servant relationship. And as long as that relationship exists, the politician becomes relevant. But they forget that if we want to grow as a country, we need to move beyond that. If in the Western world they create opportunities, because they have realized that every single human being living on this planet has some kind of potential within. Some, because of where they are coming from, may be disadvantaged. They may not be able to realize it, to potentiate it. So it is the duty of the state to ensure that we are able to unlock these hidden potential within people by creating the necessary incentive and opportunities to maximize these potentials. And trust me, the state will grow. That is what the Western countries and other people have done over the years to create a lot of millionaires and billionaires around the world. But in our part of the world, it's different. Even if the person want to assist you first, they want to look at where you come from, your lineage, the political ties, the affiliation, the kind of affinity that you have. That will determine whether you will be assisted or not. And unfortunately, that has been the old playbook, and it's the reason why we've been here for over 60 years after independence. We are still where we are. The poor are still getting poorer, and the rich are getting richer. So you ask yourself, what is the essence of this politics?
So
what has been the impact?
So what then is the role of the youth in our fledgling democracy? I mean, over 60 years, but we call it fledgling because compared to other countries that have done over 100, over 200, we are still a fledgling democracy. I mean, for the number of years we have had independence, if we're an adult male or female, would already be on pension. Yes. But we haven't really learned much, have we? No. And whatever little we have learned, what is the role of the thinking youth in this democracy?
I've been saying that young people, we are the sentinels who are destined to protect the infrastructure of liberty and protect our democracy. We are the forces that will lead this charge. Over the years, we've been sitting back, watching the aged take the center stage, make all the decisions.
I like the way you say the aged. We haven't had too many pensioners as presidents yet.
They've brought on board some young ones under their belt, and it's the same mentality, the same mindset. So we've been sitting at the back for quite a long time, watching and expecting that things will work out. But we've come to the realization that things are not working as we expect, and our future are on the line. You see, I've been telling people that there are some of us who cannot afford to fail because we don't have backup anywhere. So once we fail, we don't only fail ourselves. But how many people know offer? So once we fail, we don't only fail ourselves, but we fail a generation. And it's something that we cannot afford to do. So for me, young people, we have a role, and we need to lead this conversation. We need to be part. Don't sit idle and say, hey, it's some people's business. Politics is your business. Whichever way you are, whether you are a driver, whether you are a mate, whether you are whoever you are a stakeholder in an enterprise called Ghana.
It took just one human being, one man, one fruit seller, a fruit seller, pushing his fruits to start the Arab Spring.
Yes.
Is it that our young people are too lazy, too cowardly, too docile, or merely unconcerned?
I think the timidity aspect arising from the kind of culture that we have is some of the reasons. But you see, when you push human beings to their extreme, they can do the impossible.
So our young people are not angry enough then?
Not at all. Not at all. You see, people feel, most of them feel unconcerned. Like I told you, some feel that, oh, politics belongs to a group of people. It is their business. Let them do. But they forget that every single decision that is made at the top there has some kind of impact on your life.
How can you still feel unconcerned in the face of recent national scandals undermining the public trust and robbing the young people of their future?
Yes.
I look at you. I mean, you cannot be a day over 36 years old.
Yeah.
How old are you now?
35.
35. So you and people maybe 10 years older than you, and people 10 years younger than you, and people 20 years younger than you, how can they see what has happened in this country? Scandals like the National Cathedral controversy, the Charles Edubwahin bribery scandal, the Signals State Funds diversion, and still sit back and say we are unconcerned or we are afraid.
I think that is quite unfortunate, because with some of these scandals, when you live in a country and you virtually have nothing to do, and you see monies belonging to the state being sunk into senseless enterprises like this National Cathedral thing, the whole idea, whoever conceived that particular idea, I don't know where it came from, because it didn't make sense to start with. We've gotten to a stage where, because of globalization, the countries are trying their best just to take advantage of the emerging technologies and other stuff to advance, trying to position their people to take advantage, because the world is in a competition whichever way you see it. Look at the geopolitical arena, what is going on, America, China, Russia. There is a sharp competition in every sphere of life, technology, military, economic, everywhere. So with this thing in mind, and with some of these things like robotics, AI,
machine learning,
whole lot of things are coming up. And your people need to take that advantage. And somebody will sit down and conceive that we need to build a cathedral for God. It's one of the most senseless enterprises I have ever come across in recent time, because it didn't make sense. But you need to invest in young people, make sure they have a future, make sure some of these opportunities are created for people to take advantage. It will take care of the unemployment situation that has always been on the surge. And when people are working and we have it in excess, or maybe and you want to do some of these things, you could have done it. But against the odd, everybody in this country at the table speaking against this whole thing. And we have some men of God who connived and deceived the president. Oh, it's a nice thing to do.
Everybody is a man of God.
So,
this whole thing about because somebody wears a clerical collar, they have direct access to God.
Yes.
Well, for me, it's a fallacy.
Yes, but it's just a
fallacy.
It's just a description, just for people to know the kind of people I'm referring to. We saw them on TV advocating for this thing, but these were people who should have known better. These are people who assume they are closer to God. And they were the very people who were supposed to counsel the president to do the right thing. But they're the very people who were ushering him into taking some of these senseless decisions. At the end of the day, what happened? We ended up sinking $58 million into a hole, and nothing was completed. When it got to a point, the whole thing was becoming an embarrassing scheme. These people were just writing letters resigning from the board. I was expecting that as both people, all that they could have done was to approach Ghanaians and apologize.
In China, such people would be shot.
Exactly.
In Japan, such people would kill themselves.
Yes, because actions must have consequences.
And the least we can do is to remember that in Ghana, there is something called causing financial loss to the state. But this will be causing egregious harm and financial loss to the state. Because what people forget is, if they want to really check, go see the number of inhabited houses that were destroyed.
Yes.
Where did we house the people who were living in those houses? Did we spend money to now go and house those people elsewhere? Why do we do this to ourselves? And why do the youth still think they have no power to do anything?
The impunity with which people in power engage in some of these things is quite astonishing. So for me, if you look at all these things, it were made possible because of the same division. People are divided because we had people who were on radio and TV on daily basis defending some of these senseless enterprises when they knew that this thing was not going anywhere. So at the end of the day, what became of the National Cathedral? It's a hole, but $58 million is gone. That money could have gone to Kolebu. We had a situation where the whole renal unit was shut down. People were going for kidney dialysis.
People died.
And they died. These people were virtually sentenced to death.
And an old man who naturally is closer to death than most of you younger people. Yes. Even though by grace, a good or bad man can live longer than a young person, was sitting and smiling, throwing money into a hole.
Yes.
Whilst young people were dying in the hospitals. And Ghanaians think this is party politics.
Yes. So if you are not angry, then you should be mad. If you are not angry over some of these things, then you are crazy, because people are dying. We are talking about life. You lose it once and that is it. These monies could have gone into some of these enterprises just to save life, but we decided to push it into a hole, and at the end of the day, nothing came out of it.
So let us assume that nobody in government had the common sense or the gumption to actually write a report to say, these are the reasons why you should not embark on this. Let's say there was no document like that that Ghana could refer to. But in the case of a Galamsey problem, there was a report written by an illustrious son of Ghana, Professor Frimpong Boateng. So now, at least, there is one where there is no clear report that people can refer to. Now there's one with a clear report that people could refer to. What happened with that?
I think it's the same attitude of indifference. People don't care. We thrive with impunity because we are in power. Because if you look at the report, Galamsey was a central team that led to when running up to the election. It was one of the major teams that everybody was talking because of the ravaging consequences it was having or living on the life on the environment. Everybody was talking about the negative impact of Galamsey. And then we have somebody who took his time to write a report, very detailed and extensive report about Galamsey, sent to the president. He decided to sit on it for 2 good years until, for whatever reason, it came out. At the end of the day, the person who wrote the report was demonized, he was insulted, he was bastardized, and he became the enemy of the state.
And Ghanaians fell for it?
Exactly. So it's just a matter of, you see, our politics is about taking control of the narrative. And there are a lot of spin doctors within the media. It's just a matter of paying them, throw some bones to them. They will do the thing for you. And in recent time, people...
I like the way you put it. Throw some bones to
yes.
them. Because some people think they're getting millions to build houses for their future.
Yes.
And they don't realize the suffering that they are inviting for their children and their children's children. Those are bones.
Yes.
Those are not meat.
Yes. And I've been telling people that one thing that you need to know, in a failed state, there are no heroes. In a state that has failed, there are no heroes.
Everybody
because
goes down.
If you are sensible, you can have all the millions, but your next door neighbor has nothing to eat. If you are a sensible person, I'm not sure you'll be okay. We want to create a just society where at least everybody will have some decent kind of life, so that at least basic things that man needs for survival, you may not have to depend on the other guy. But one person want to acquire everything in a bit to satisfy their insatiable greed. So they amass and acquire everything.
Is it born of inferiority complex that people think they have nothing in any way in this life, that the only way they can have some relevance is to steal from the poor so the poor may see them as being up there?
Yeah, that's very, very important, because you see, if you don't believe in yourself, if you don't see that within you are relevant, you need to present something to the world just to cover for that weakness. And it's exactly what. So when
so
they
it's your car, or it's your house, or it's the money you give to the poor, but you must always give it in public.
Yes.
You don't even give it privately.
No.
Because it must be seen.
Seeing something. But if you have value, if you go somewhere, people will not be looking at your car. People will not be, even if you come in a trotro, people will still respect you because you have something to offer. But when you have nothing to offer as a person, then externally you need something to compensate for that inner hole that you've created. I've been telling people, when you go to the villages and you see people going to church morning, evening, night, every blessed day, you think they are worshiping God. No, they are not worshiping God. There is a deep hole within them. Going to the church is a refuge place. They just go to take some kind of way. They hide within that particular thing for comfort. So,
as a registered nurse and now a man who holds a master's degree in public health management, there is something you spoke about, and I listened to you and I just fell in love with you, and I started looking for you from that day.
okay.
About the COVID-19 procurements and expenditure, and how Ghana was ripped off, and how the health of the people of Ghana was not at the heart of the Minister for Health nor the President. How did this rub you?
I think, you see, the entire government we had, for me, was a Ponzi scheme. Many people saw it as government that was running an enterprise of government, but it was a Ponzi scheme. Because you see, when this COVID thing came to town, countries around the world, if we were to take you from them, we saw certain measures to mitigate the kind of economic impact that people were going through. And that is what governments are supposed to do. Welfare programs that will take away and make cushion people just to live well. But for us, we were being imposed heavy taxes. Aside that, there were a lot of monies that were coming in. These monies were supposed to be channeled into enterprises that will cushion people, but government decided to make that particular thing some kind of a Christmas bonanza for themselves. So people started using expressions and acronyms to amass this money for themselves. So when the Auditor General came out with a report, as a serious democratic country, the expectation is that the state will move in just to retrieve or do something just to ensure that people who one way or the other stole from the state will be recovered. But the state was, well, the attitude was the same, indifferent. The president didn't move, and we got to a point we were even defending the very criminals who stole from the state. As we speak, the report is still hanging. I don't know whether the new government will take it upon itself just to ensure they retrieve the money or not. But there is a disease. People are desperate. People have gone into depression. People are losing their economic life. There is the government that is supposed to ensure that something is done within that particular period just to ensure that you take care of the people. But that is the point the government decided to rob it, the people. That is how Ponzi schemes operate. That is no government. So for me, I wasn't surprised. And some of these things wasn't just about the COVID. There were a lot of some of these enterprises that we can mention. Sometimes some of the enterprises were so senseless to the extent that why would the government wake up a day and say, hey, I want to build 101 hospital at a go. Did it make sense when all the money they could make available was $400 million to build 101 hospitals? If you are to divide, every single hospital will get less than $4 million. So a hospital, and one hospital estimation is around $80 million. So 80 million, you're supposed to get, how do you call it, $4 million.
Isn't it worrisome that when such pronouncements are made, the sensible people in the society, the thought leaders, those in academia, the captains of industry, are not able to speak up and say, this is a lie, pull it back?
Unfortunately for us, quote unquote, the people in that space are themselves the same people. Everybody want to align to any of the political divide just to be seen relevant, because the very people you saw talking blah 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 today, many of them have taken position. So is it depending on where the person stands across the political divide that will determine the kind of conversation that will be activated? You understand?
Taking a position is not a bad thing in itself, so long as you do it based on competence and honesty.
Yes.
But it's also important for us to recognize that to whom much is given, much is expected.
Yes.
The learned in the society who refuse to speak up, whilst the ignorant wallow in their ignorance and suffer, are doing more harm to the society than the corrupt people. Do you agree with that?
Yes, exactly the point. So my point is that people who are in the middle, who are not aligned, you may even be aligned, because once you have conscience and conviction, what is wrong is wrong. So when government begin to take some of this decision, because as politicians, they might want to attempt some of these enterprises for political expediency. For all you know, some promises have been made somewhere, and the government motivation is just actualize that particular promise, just to go and tell people, hey, I made a promise and I have delivered it. But that particular promise may not have the kind of impact we want to feel as a country. It may not even be sensible enterprise. For instance, with this Agenda 111, the 400 million disbursement could have built 22 district hospitals. That would have been a legacy now. You can just go and say, we have 22 district hospitals, but as you speak, we have nothing. The most advanced is just a building. But if you have been at the hospital, you know that a building is not a hospital. It's just about 1/3. Because you need to stock with the state-of-the-art equipment and those kind of things before you can call it a hospital. But these things have gone waste. So the question is, when governments are beginning to embark on such enterprises, who are those who are supposed to advise? Because unfortunately, everybody becomes they become a bootlicker, sycophant.
That is why they say you can tell a king by his courtiers. If a king surrounds himself with yes men, if a king surrounds himself with people who merely nod, then when he is naked, nobody can tell him. And those who are around the king, who cannot tell when he's doing wrong, must be slaughtered long before the king himself is.
Yeah, you see, and a weak-minded king might not want to surround himself with intelligent people. So a foolish king will attract foolish followers.
When we come back, more with my man, Ivan Kyei Innocent, speaking truth to power, a model version of what we would like for the youth all over Africa, a distinguished gentleman who I admire so much. When we come back, we'll be talking about Nkrumah's vision and legacy, that the governments of Ghana seem to have just aborted whilst everybody tries to become a hero, when in actual fact they are no giants, they are like lepers. Right after this on Master of the Game.